The pounding on the front door at 2:00 a.m. shattered the silence, and when the exhausted man opened it, his young neighbor stood on the porch with tears streaming down her face, clutching a small envelope with trembling hands. Her voice barely rose above a whisper as she looked into his stunned eyes and pleaded, "Marry me before Friday." Before he could even process what she had said, she collapsed into sobs, and the envelope slipped onto the floor, revealing documents that would change both of their lives forever. What looked like an impossible proposal was actually a desperate cry for help born from sacrifice, fear, and a promise that had been hidden for years. Before we discover why one heartbreaking request would lead to an unforgettable journey of hope and healing, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who believes in kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances, and subscribe to our channel so our community can continue sharing stories that remind us that compassion often begins with simply opening the door. When daylight finally arrived, the warm morning sun painted the quiet neighborhood in soft golden light, making the terrifying events of the night seem almost unreal. Everett Calloway sat at his kitchen table with 2 untouched cups of coffee while 26-year-old Brielle Dawson stared silently out the window. Everett was 42, a widowed high school history teacher known throughout the town for his calm nature, honesty, and willingness to help anyone in need. Since losing his wife to cancer 8 years earlier, he had lived a simple life filled with books, gardening, and teaching. Brielle had grown up next door. Everett had watched her ride bicycles as a child, celebrate high school graduation, and eventually become a pediatric nurse. He had always viewed her with the same protective affection an older brother or trusted family friend might feel. Now she looked completely different. Dark circles surrounded her tired eyes. Her hands shook as she unfolded the documents she had dropped on his porch. Everett carefully read every page. The papers belonged to her grandmother, Eleanor Dawson, who had raised Brielle after her parents died in a highway accident when she was only 9 years old. Eleanor had recently suffered a severe stroke that left her unable to speak clearly and requiring constant medical care. Before becoming ill, Eleanor had quietly arranged her estate with one unusual condition attached to the family's historic farmhouse. If Brielle remained unmarried by Friday, ownership of the farmhouse would automatically transfer to a distant relative who had contributed nothing to the family for decades. Eleanor had accepted that condition years earlier because she believed Brielle would eventually marry naturally, never imagining illness would arrive before they could discuss changing the legal agreement. The farmhouse represented far more than property. It contained generations of memories. It also housed a small community food pantry that Eleanor had operated for struggling families every Saturday afternoon for nearly 20 years. Losing the house meant losing that tradition. Everett frowned thoughtfully. The situation sounded unbelievable. Brielle admitted she had spent weeks consulting lawyers, but every legal expert reached the same conclusion. Changing the documents before Friday was impossible because Eleanor could no longer communicate well enough to complete new legal instructions. The only apparent solution was marriage. Everett looked at Brielle with quiet concern. He understood immediately that this was not a romantic proposal. It was the desperate request of someone trying to protect the final gift left by the woman who had sacrificed everything to raise her. Still, marriage carried enormous emotional weight. Neither wanted to treat it carelessly. Everett suggested they spend the day seeking another solution before considering something so life-changing. Together they visited attorneys, county officials, and estate specialists across town. Every conversation ended the same way. The legal deadline remained fixed. The inheritance clause could not be postponed. As the afternoon sunlight streamed through courthouse windows, Brielle's hope slowly faded. She confessed something Everett had never known. When she was 16, Eleanor once told her that a home built with love should always remain a place where no hungry neighbor was turned away. The pantry had fed countless families during difficult winters. Children received school supplies there. Elderly residents collected groceries without embarrassment. The farmhouse had quietly become the heart of the community. Everett began seeing the situation differently. This was not simply about preserving property. It was about protecting a legacy of compassion. That evening, instead of making a rushed decision, Everett invited several trusted friends, including an attorney, a retired judge, and the local pastor, to discuss every possible ethical and legal implication. They spoke openly for hours. Each person emphasized the same principle. Any decision must be honest, transparent, and free from deception. If a marriage occurred, it should never be based on fraud but on mutual respect, informed consent, and a genuine commitment to supporting one another while they determined their future. Those conversations changed everything. Neither Everett nor Brielle wished to exploit legal technicalities. Instead, they acknowledged a truth that had quietly grown through years of friendship. They already trusted one another completely. They respected each other's values. They cared deeply about the same community. Whether romance ever developed remained unknown. But kindness, honesty, and partnership already existed. On Thursday morning, beneath bright blue skies, Everett visited Eleanor's rehabilitation center. Although she struggled to speak, her eyes remained expressive. He gently explained everything. When Brielle entered the room holding her grandmother's hand, Eleanor slowly squeezed both of their hands together. Tears filled everyone's eyes. The elderly woman smiled faintly before nodding with unmistakable understanding. It was the only approval she could physically give. The following day, surrounded by warm afternoon sunshine, close friends, neighbors, and community members gathered in the courthouse garden. The ceremony remained simple. No extravagant decorations. No elaborate celebration. Only sincere promises to face whatever came next with honesty and compassion. Everyone understood the unusual circumstances. Nobody questioned the integrity behind them. After the ceremony, ownership of the farmhouse legally remained with Brielle. The food pantry continued serving families without interruption. Life gradually settled into an unexpected rhythm. Everett continued teaching. Brielle continued nursing. At first, they occupied separate bedrooms while carefully navigating the unfamiliar reality of sharing a home. Neither forced expectations upon the other. Instead, they built their relationship one ordinary day at a time. They repaired old fences together. Prepared meals for the pantry. Read books on the porch during sunny afternoons. Laughed over burnt pies and overgrown gardens. Months passed. Their friendship deepened into something neither had anticipated. Without dramatic declarations or grand gestures, affection quietly replaced uncertainty. One afternoon while organizing Eleanor's attic, they discovered dozens of handwritten journals. Inside one notebook, Eleanor had written about Everett years before. She admired his patience with children, his quiet generosity after losing his wife, and the way he always repaired neighbors' fences without accepting payment. One sentence made both of them pause. It read that if life had unfolded differently, she believed Everett would someday become exactly the kind of man Brielle deserved. Neither knew Eleanor had ever imagined such a possibility. The discovery did not erase the unusual beginning of their marriage. But it gave them comfort that someone who loved them both had always recognized their shared character. Another year passed. The farmhouse flourished. The pantry expanded into a weekly community kitchen where volunteers prepared fresh meals for struggling families. Local farmers donated vegetables. Students organized clothing drives. Retirees taught cooking classes. What once served dozens now helped hundreds. Everett and Brielle became known less for the unusual way they married and more for the kindness they inspired throughout the town. One sunny afternoon, while planting flowers beside the farmhouse entrance, Everett quietly admitted that somewhere between repairing old windows, sharing countless meals, and watching Brielle comfort frightened children at the hospital, he had fallen in love with the remarkable woman who first appeared on his porch in desperation. Brielle smiled through happy tears. She confessed the same truth. The marriage that began as an act of compassion had slowly become the love story neither of them expected. Years later, visitors often asked how they met. Everett always smiled gently before saying that sometimes the most unexpected knocks on the door become the greatest blessings of a lifetime. He never focused on the fear that brought Brielle to his porch. He focused on the hope that followed. Eleanor lived long enough to watch children continue gathering at the farmhouse pantry every Saturday afternoon. Although her speech never fully returned, her smile revealed everything words no longer could. She knew her greatest legacy had survived. Not because of legal documents. Because two compassionate people chose integrity over convenience and kindness over fear. Before this story comes to its heartfelt conclusion, please leave a meaningful comment sharing whether you believe love can grow from trust, friendship, and acts of selfless compassion, because your story may encourage someone else to believe that hope sometimes arrives in the most unexpected ways. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. May we all remember that while life can begin with heartbreak and impossible choices, the strongest homes are built not by perfect circumstances, but by honesty, courage, forgiveness, and hearts willing to open the door when someone needs hope the most.